Wow, we are right on schedule. Right on schedule.
On the nose.
On the nose. Welcome to Uniquely Lutheran. I am the apparently misunderstood Al Ernst. This over to my left, your right, as you're watching this on your screens, is the inevitable big time pastor of the year, smartest man I know, head honcho. What other? He, in the words of the country star Marty Stewart, he is a fabulous superlative.
Wow. And I can't change my own oil. And I can't pop open my own hood.
That's
so all the knowledge in the world isn't helping me a whole lot.
That's what they say about savants. That's what they say about savants.
That's right.
This is Pastor Jeff Gross, and Pastor, why don't you start us out with a prayer?
Dearest God, we come to the week of Thanksgiving and to the day of Thanksgiving, and we are reminded that every day should be a day of Thanksgiving, perhaps even more frequently than once a day. You have lavished your grace upon us through Jesus Christ and through the bounty of the blessings that have been bestowed upon us. Let us take a mere day to celebrate and reflect upon those gifts. And let's make it a habit. And we thank you for this time you've given us, and God bless all who are traveling and all who will be together as family. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. It's a good thing you are throwing that extra travel blessing out, because this year they say I don't think we're really post-pandemic, but because everything's changed a lot, they're talking about having a bigger holiday season than we did in 2019 before the pandemic started.
I bet it will. It'll be, the floodgates will be opening, and people are spending money hand over fist, and they're traveling long distances just because they missed that last year.
Right, and the only comment we would make over here, is us to you, and you all know this already, is pack your patience, all right? Because those of us that will be traveling by air, which I won't, tomorrow and they consider tomorrow through Sunday as the quote-unquote holiday time, and fortunately, neither one of the trip that I'm making to appear for my shows up in Georgia and Alabama, I'm not in that quote-unquote period, but I'm going to be during that time, and I can tell you from 30 years of air travel experience, even before we had TSAs and pandemics and terrorist problems, that a little bit of patience and kindness goes a long way, and for goodness sakes, no matter how busy you get, give yourself and throw an hour into anything that you plan to travel to or be at, or all those things, because I can tell you that I traveled through the state of Florida this week, and people are coming down early, and my little GPS says, oh, it's only 2 hours and 4 minutes to my gig, wherever it was. It would give myself like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and 3.5 hours later, I would still be caught in some traffic somewhere trying to get to my show on time, if not on time, maybe even a few minutes late. So yeah, I'm realizing it, just like the rest of us are. Do your thing and allot yourself some extra time and take a lot of deep breaths, and this is why we're wearing our official Buc-ee's Thanksgiving Fall Festival, whatever you want to call them, T-shirts. And I'm sure Amy can get a little. We got me and Jeff have our little T-shirts together, and you know what? We're just, it's fun. It's just a lot of fun, and it's not to. Buc-ee's doesn't, even though they should, they don't pay us anything. But I mean, we've given them more shout outs in the last year than you can shake your stick at.
I haven't even been there yet,
and you haven't even seen one.
No, I'm wearing. My parents have seen one. My son saw it, and they've all been very impressed. But yeah, I just was wondering that if you were to buy a hat back in the Pilgrim day and it didn't fit, You just tighten the buckle a little bit.
That's what
The belt buckle on your hat.
You're the historian, so great. This gets us perfect into our one topic of, and obviously, folks, we're going to have, this is going to be a good, fun show as we then start preparing for Advent and a lot of other things. Jeff, let's talk about this a little bit, and let's talk about the idea of how, we all know that Thanksgiving was the Pilgrims coming to Plymouth Rock and what the 1600s and everything like that. But was there not a faith-related religious reasoning that they came and all of those kind of things?
Yes. There are two components to Thanksgiving that I think are important to point out. And the fact is, the first one is that this was a national holiday that was brought on by Abraham Lincoln in celebration of the end of the Civil War. It was first and foremost, primarily and above all else, a day for the country to give thanks to God for all the blessings that have been bestowed. The lore that goes around Thanksgiving with Plymouth Rock and the Pilgrims and Plymouth Plantation, that was kind of inserted into the story, but in New England, it was very much a part of the story. That was New England Thanksgiving. Long before Abraham Lincoln made it a national holiday, the states of New England celebrated the Pilgrims, and they called it Thanksgiving. And it kind of got morphed into the day of thanks that Abraham Lincoln declared for the last Thursday of the month of November.
I had brand new to me, and I've been through school and college, that is actually Abraham Lincoln that gave us the Thanksgiving
As a national holiday.
as a national holiday.
And it was celebrated by different states. And what I don't know is when, because generally it's a harvest festival. And by November, we're pretty much, I think the only thing they're harvesting are gourds. I think it's the gourd harvest. You got wheat, you got corn, and then you got gourds. So I think it was the gourd harvest.
Well, I almost think we ought to go back. I got caught one year or a couple of years actually on a cruise ship leaving Canada sometime in the middle to late October,
right?
And remembering that they celebrate their Thanksgiving
in
October. Yeah, and I would think that would be more of a harvest time to.
That's literally true. Yes, I don't mean to use the word literally too much, but that is exactly what it was. And also, our friends in the Jewish faith celebrate Rosh Hashanah, and Yom Kippur is a harvest festival too. But they do it a little bit earlier. Sometimes it's in the beginning of October, sometimes it's the end of September. But for some reason, we waited a month. And it also works kind of interestingly enough, it leads us into Christmas. Because we know who the last person on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is. And it's not Miles Standish, it's Santa Claus. So it just is just the reality of it.
Okay, well they were called the Puritans, right? Was that not, or was that just the name?
Yes and no. Yes and no. See, and I'm so sorry, Al. I hate
no.
But the interesting thing is we use the word Pilgrim and Puritan kind of interchangeably.
Exactly.
The Puritans, they were actually called themselves separatists. And they did not have belt buckles on their hats, contrary to popular belief. They left England in a different journey than the Puritans. However, they all became Congregationalists and Calvinists at the end. They all kind of morphed together as time went on. It's a badge of honor to be able to trace your lineage back to the Plymouth Rock. It's almost like, say, I'm so American. How American are you? I'm so American that my great-great-great-grandfather landed on Plymouth Rock. That's just kind of the lore. But they were very simple people. They were very simple people who really wanted to come to what's now the United States, what then, of course, was a colony of Massachusetts, and establish a place where they could worship in the manner in which they liked.
How interesting. I mean, that is just absolutely a fascinating way that things get, as we talk about history and everything like that, how so much gets kind of lumped together, I guess, for ease of the story. And
the beauty is you really can't, and I say nice things about Puritans because of the contribution. I was thinking this morning, like, have you ever heard of this little institution called Harvard and Yale? They're both started by the Puritans.
Really?
Yep. Actually, it started out as kind of a seminary, a training place for preachers. It's kind of like if you build a seminary and it turned into a university. In the 1600s, it was a seminary. Now it's a world-class university. But that's courtesy of the Puritans. And they came largely for the same reason, and they've been celebrating Thanksgiving just like we have. And it's a neat story, Al, but it's also kind of an amalgam of two stories. The story of the peace treaty between the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, and the story of Thanksgiving, where they actually set aside a day to have a feast to thank God for the blessings. And they may have been two separate times, but we kind of morphed them together. But we're kind of used to doing that because we do that with our nativity sets every Christmas. We put the wise men next to the shepherd when in all likelihood they never came within 1,000 feet of each other. But that's okay because these stories, we're telling a story.
Right.
And the end of the story, the most important part of the story isn't the historicity of the story, but the message.
Right.
And I wasn't there, so I can't really speak. I wasn't there, so there's still, that's what I always say about history. Unless you're there, you're limited to what you really know. But it's exciting. Have you seen Plymouth Rock before?
No, I haven't. No.
It's smaller than this table.
Really?
Yeah, I was underwhelmed. But however, I was overwhelmed by what it represents. What it represents is something that's much bigger than the rock itself.
Okay, so the real question then becomes, in my mind, how were they the ones that did try to find peace with the Native Americans that were here? Because now then you have so many other stories of things when America, as it grew, shipped Indians into reservations and all these other kind of things. But at the
not our proudest moment. No, you're absolutely right. But go ahead. I didn't mean
No. I'm just saying. At that point, you're saying they really did work to try to get along.
Yeah, for survival purposes and coexistence purposes, and later on, that relationship kind of went sour. But that's a big chapter of our history. We really don't know a whole lot of what happened between the time when the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth Rock and the Revolutionary War. There's a lot of history that happened in there. That included other things like the Salem witch trials and a few other not so proud moments. But the skirmishes and the saddest part, I think, of the chapter with the Native Americans was disease that was brought over by the Europeans. Did a lot more damage than... If you get a chance to go on Wikipedia or look up on Google Tisquantum or Squanto, who helped the Pilgrims, who was the Native American friend of the Pilgrims. We read about him in grade school. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. That is worth your afternoon. Just to hear his story, because basically all his people died, and he was the only one left. It was by disease.
Wow.
Much more so than warfare or anything of that nature, and that's just one of the sad chapters of our history.
Well, my question being in that of course, I've done these things on cruise ships, which are plenty stocked and has massive amounts of conveniences like self-generating electricity and all the things that we think of. But when I've done the crossings, obviously when the Pilgrims and the Puritans came to where they came, and leaving England, I assume,
right?
That I mean, under those circumstances and in that century, had to be an unbelievably difficult.
There are boats in Marina Jacks that are significantly bigger than the Mayflower. So when you look at the Mayflower, the only thing I was more underwhelmed by than Plymouth Rock was the Mayflower. And although I have to say I'm impressed, because if that many people can travel in that confined of space and make it to this country and not die, that's a feat unto itself.
Right, and
lots of people did.
Right, and not to even begin to talk about weather and seasonal conditions.
Oh man,
all of those kind of things. I mean, I can't.
50-foot waves in the middle of the Atlantic, and icy water and all kinds of things like that.
I mean, they're
a hardy people.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in 22-foot waves near Halifax, Nova Scotia, and on a cruise ship, which has every modern convenience you could think of. And I can tell you, those were some of the few times in the 27 years I worked on and off of ships that I was legitimately looking for my life jacket and things because of the kind of movement the ship was taking.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
That's in a big ship.
On a ship that has lighting and different things like that. So I mean, were the people of England being oppressed religiously by the king, the Church of England?
Yes.
And that's the reason they decided to come over here, or what?
Yes, it's really very fascinating what happened. The dynasty, the Stuarts, who we came to know through our friend King James, of the King James Bible, his relatives and his descendants eventually got to the point where they were really oppressive for those who wanted a kinder, simpler, gentler religion. They took the Church of England in a different direction than many of the people wanted it to go. And they were not open to suggestions.
Wow.
So they found themselves at odds. Many of them went to the Netherlands first because the Netherlands was more of a place that was welcoming. It's a Calvinist country, and they were Calvinist people. And then they wound up coming to what's now the United States, the state of Massachusetts, which was the Plymouth plantation and colony. And I don't know a lot of the details of that. I think style of worship was a big part of it. Moving in a Protestant direction with the Puritans and Pilgrims, in a Catholic direction with the Stuarts, and how there was that divide. And eventually it would become chaotic in England. There'd be a civil war and everything. By that time, our Pilgrims were firmly planted in this country, but it is a very interesting history. I think it's like change. We don't like it very much. When people come and try to implement it, it doesn't go very well sometimes. And some people have to part companies, and some people have to literally jump on a boat and go across the ocean. And that's really what happened with these guys.
But we do, and we evolve, and all those types of things happen. I just always think that it's good to take a reference look back. And of course, I also have to tell you, during your prayer, how much I agree with the idea that, in my mind, every day is Thanksgiving. I mean, every day, for that matter, every day is Christmas. But however, it's kind of like people, and tell me as a pastor, in terms of trying to help direct and lead a group of people, how do we get people out of the idea of going, oh, it's the holidays, it's time for me to turn my nice button on, and I'll, now, okay, I got to be nice until New Year's Eve, and then it's January 2nd, I can go back to being, not the person I once was. I mean, I love celebration, and I love that we need celebration, but my challenge, you as a long-term minister, how do you help people see that every day should be that feeling?
Well, it's When you say about peace on earth, goodwill towards man, that we sing in the songs, and in the niceness and the kindness that comes over people's heart, that happens everywhere except the parking lots. So I don't see a lot of peace on earth, goodwill towards man in the UTC parking lot, so I'm not quite as optimistic about the holiday spirit as I probably should be. But in all seriousness, I think when you make a concerted effort and you say, this is the day where we're going to work on being civil and kind and nice, and then we turn it off when we're done, that's not good. Obviously, it's just like thinking of all that God gives us and we say, we're going to give you a day. We're giving God a day. Thank you very much. You gave us your life. You gave us your son, Jesus. And we're going to give you a day. We should really give you a lot more than a day. But I also think one of the creative things I thought of, and we actually implemented in one of my churches, I called it Just Because Sunday. We're going to take a random Sunday in the middle of July, nowhere close to any of the holidays, and we're going to gather food and clothing, and we're going to give it to a charity just because.
Right.
No strings attached. No holiday connection. Just to really get people into the mindset that every day should be Christmas in that sense, and every day should be Thanksgiving. So, I agree with you.
So as a, as a minister then, and also, I mean, just to me as what I call myself a civilian, a regular person, it's really, this time should be a way of not, we always live the values, but maybe is it a time to verbalize the values? You know what I mean? That we're really emphasizing what people we need to be.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about verbalizing?
Well, when I say verbalizing, it is that, you always, to me, in some of my worlds, that I look at people, if you say something nice or you go out of your way, like, those of you that will end up watching my Here I Stand Up, we'll be talking about this in a moment. I just did a sleep study last night, and it is a very odd experience. And those of you, most people have never done it, and you go to a very I don't know what you want to call it. Doesn't look like a hotel, but a very clean antiseptic area. It's comfortable and everything like that, and they hook 100 wires to you, and they measure how you sleep and what realms of sleep you get, and then they help with the assistance of the CPAP machines and all the technology. They help design the perfect one for you so that you get real live sleep. Those of you that, maybe some of you out there probably nod off just for a moment at a stoplight, or
right.
You feel draggy. Believe it or not, there's a term that's called micro sleep, and what that is the fact that your body has, and I don't want to go through the time of this, but your body has all these levels, and you need the REM sleep in order to really get your health. I mean, and we think of exercise, we think of nutrition, and the older we get, the more important sleep is. All that aside, your question. The gentleman that was the sleep technician greeted me with this heavy Polish accent named Jerry, and of course, as a comedian,
sure, for Yaroslav.
Yeah. Of course, as a comedian, I had 1,000 things in my mind going, what are you getting yourself into? You will sit down in this chair and we will hook you up with wires. And he just, he was one of those guys that just does an everyday job that's very unusual. That is one of the, immediately, I never knew this guy existed. Didn't know he existed till I got to the sleep center at 8 o'clock last night. He was one of the nicest, most great people that I've met, and he went through the entire process, and it made it so much easier, especially because it's so new. And he said he had done it for over 20 years. So me being a comedian, knowing how many times I've done a show and everything like that, is that, you know, I'm sure as a pastor, there's got to be that Sunday where you kind of go, man, I am not, you know, I'm just not feeling it. I got to grind it out. And this guy just never looks like he's had a bad night with people. I'm sure he has.
Well, how could he have a bad night with you, Al? I mean,
well, I know, but I mean, but you know, I mean, he was very. I mean, they greeted you at the outside at the doors because of the security. You know, you need, you know. So I was limping from my knee. Need a wheelchair? Do you need? I mean, and I know the older people. You know, lots of other things. What happened, and why I say we have to verbalize it, is that I got home this morning, and both producer Amy and I was even more hyperactive than most of you think I am that are out there, and drove my wife crazy because there I'm bounding through the house at 4:45 in the morning because I had all this great sleep for 3. You know, believe it or not, you only need 90 minutes of REM sleep. All the other sleep of the 8 hours or whatever it is kind of preparation sleep. But the real important part of it is the 90 minutes of REM
90
sleep.
minutes of sleep at night.
Right.
Hour and a half.
If you could go into that level 4, you do it. But anyway,
Sure.
I called the sleep center and I said I want to speak to the, you know, and you know, they knew I had studied before, and I could sense almost like calling the manager at a restaurant, you know, that they were thinking I had some kind of, and I wanted to go, I just wanted to tell you, this guy is a champion, you know, he's a gentleman. He's you know, he is that person that anybody wants in our midst, you know, and the challenge that I think Christmas and you know, any of our church times, but especially Christmas and Thanksgiving, brings to us is that we all talk about that. I mean, you know, we've had that discussion. When I die, I understand about funerals and what people need, but I don't want that. You know, if somebody thinks I'm a good person, I'd love for them to say that while I'm still alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, I don't want flowers at my funeral. You know,
You want flowers now?
I want flowers
Bring 'em
now.
now.
Bring them now. And so I'm asking you, as a great pastor, a historian, how do we, as we wrap this show up, how do we make this idea of verbalizing our friendship, our faith, whatever you want to call it, more, because everybody, you know, you get the rolling eyes, because everybody, as one lady used to say, well, Al, I'm ready for you to go into shtick, you know.
Sure.
And they think they think I'm going to do it, and then, you know, zap them with a, and it's just a genuine, I want to say, you know, hey, you're great at what you do, thank you. You know, how do we get there?
It's a good start. I think, like all good habits, you start out small and you work your way up. But I think in this particular case, you've reached the REM sleep equivalent of kindness right off the bat. Just to go that extra mile to call somebody's supervisor up and say your employee did an incredible job, that almost never happens.
Right.
And so just imagine the morale, the collective morale. That little teeny tiny act of kindness multiplied by 1,000 could really turn this whole place around.
Yes, it could.
And I think that that's a good place to start. We can only do it one at a time. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think I'm inspired by that. And I'm going to ask for Jerry if I go to get a sleep study, because I've had one done at my own house where I wire myself up. But you look so much more comfortable than that.
Well, see, once you get to that point, what happens is I did the wire yourself up part. They determined I had sleep apnea, and then in order for them to fit your mask and all that, you got to go to their center.
Oh, sure.
But that's what I hope, and I know since I've known you, and I've known where our church is going, and what we want to give out to the world. And everybody who watches this everywhere, is that, you know, take that moment I mean, we can still have our jokes and have our fun, but take that moment to make sure somebody knows you gave, we appreciate your efforts, that things are done the right way, and it just isn't a grind. So with all that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
We are going to be doing some special shows. I definitely want to take our church theme, and I don't want to reveal that yet, and really intertwine that with our shows over the next few weeks. And I think it's going to be an exciting time, and I can't wait to do it. And Jeff, you're in Sunday, right? We're back to regular service, 10 a.m.
Regular service, 10 a.m. And looking forward to seeing y'all there.
And then when does the Advent service start?
Advent services will be on Tuesday evenings at 6:30.
As he looks at Amy.
Check our website.
Yeah, check our website.
But I believe it's at 6 o'clock. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. I just got caught off guard there for a second.
That's okay.
A moment of imperfection.
That's what makes our show so
but
great.
the evening Advent services will be on Tuesday nights, and I believe we'll find out shortly. But as we're filibustering here.
Yeah, and I hate to keep stretching the show out longer. What I can tell you is we got Advent services. We got a special Sunday afternoon comedy show coming up. We've got a special theme for our Christmas and Advent time, and we really call it Advent because the time after it is really the Christmas time. As our church year rolls, we have got some wonderful people here. We encourage you to come in person, but if you don't come in person, please continue to watch us on video on our what we are now calling our digital ministry.
6:30
on Tuesday, and we are not going to be streaming those. However, if we have our way, and I have my way, I haven't even mentioned this to anybody, we're going to at least do some recording, and we'll make those available. Some of the recordings of that.
And the nice thing is we're able to do that. So I think we can do some recording. I thought would be great.
All right, and on behalf of Pastor Jeff Gross, very happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Amy, we thank you. You're what makes this happen here, and you have a wonderful family that I personally and Lori just love and feel a part of, and we wish you a wonderful Thanksgiving. And to all of you watching us, we heard we are multi-state visited, so wherever you are, stay warm, be jealous. It's going to be 70 here, and you are watching